picture this, okay? It is 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
A woman is sitting in the driver's seat of a 2006 Toyota Camry, and she's just parked under this harsh, flickering glare of a random street lamp somewhere.
All right.
Her smartphone is propped up against the dashboard, and the camera is just locked onto her face.
Yeah.
It is broadcasting her every single breath to, an audience of thousands.
Okay.
And the lighting is terrible, obviously. It's casting these deep shadows all over the inside of the car. But resting right there in the center console, sitting right next to like a half-empty coffee cup and a bunch of fast food wrappers, is a physical book of spells.
A literal spell book.
A literal spell book. And the thing is, this is not, it's not like an indie film set or some interactive theater piece.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 24/7 unrelenting reality for a woman who has essentially gamified her own psychological unraveling for a live audience.
Yeah, and I mean, the most disturbing part isn't necessarily the spell book, right?
Right.
Or the car, or the fact that it's 3 a.m. The really disturbing part is the chat.
Oh, the chat is wild.
It's just scrolling furiously on that screen. Thousands of people from literally all over the globe. And they aren't just watching her passively. They are actively funding her.
Exactly. They're paying for it.
Right. They're paying real money to send insults, to goad her into this erratic behavior, and basically to fuel a cross-country pursuit of individuals who want absolutely nothing to do with her.
It's crazy.
I mean, what we are looking at here is a masterclass in how modern live streaming culture completely commodifies obsession.
Yes. And that's the thing. It fundamentally breaks the way we assume the internet is supposed to work,
How so?
Well, I mean, most viral moments have a natural life cycle. You watch a funny video, you send it to a friend, you have a laugh, and then you just swipe to the next thing.
Right, the algorithm just moves on.
Exactly. Our collective attention span resets, and whoever was in that video goes back to their normal, quiet life. But when you step into this ecosystem of unfiltered, unmoderated live streaming...
It's a whole different beast.
It really is. That viral firework doesn't fade. It just hangs there in the digital sky, burning hotter and getting fueled by the very people watching it until it threatens to, burn down the entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that is what we are unpacking today on the Deep Dive. We are pulling back the curtain on the incredibly volatile, incredibly polarizing, and deeply complex digital world of Charlene Toussaint.
Yeah.
Who is known online to this ever-growing, deeply toxic community as the Moët Goddess, or sometimes Haitian Moët.
And it serves as just a phenomenal, if really tragic, case study. Because, people listening might tangentially know her for one specific viral stunt.
Oh, the road trip.
Right, the road trip. The moment she live streamed herself driving 35 hours straight from Atlanta all the way to California.
Which is an insane drive to do without stopping.
Absolutely insane. And she did it over what she later described on stream as, quote, false dreams.
Wow.
But the thing is, that road trip, it barely scratches the surface.
Yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. What we are really examining here is how the architecture of these live streaming platforms, they blend cultural mysticism with deep, deep mental vulnerability. And they turn online outrage into a highly lucrative, completely self-sustaining business model.
So if you are listening to this right now and you have ever found yourself falling down a late-night internet rabbit hole,
we've all been there,
wondering how a fleeting viral moment somehow sustains itself into a permanent 24/7 lifestyle, you really need to buckle up, because understanding the mechanics behind the Moët Goddess is going to completely alter how you view the modern digital economy.
Oh, for sure.
And to understand the phenomenon, I feel like we have to start with the branding, because Moët Goddess, I mean, it sounds like a generic Instagram handle, right?
Yeah, it sounds like an influencer.
Exactly. It sounds like someone who posts pictures of bottle service at, exclusive nightclubs. But when you look closely at the cultural and the linguistic roots of that moniker, it is incredibly heavy.
Oh, it really is.
It is loaded with a very specific, absolute authority.
Yeah, the linguistic breakdown of the name is critical to understanding her psychology. I mean, the moniker isn't just a random assortment of luxury buzzwords. It is heavily rooted in Haitian culture.
Right. Let's unpack the Met part first.
So let's look at the word Met. In Haitian Creole, Met translates directly to master or owner.
Master or owner. That's a strong word.
Very strong. It is a word that implies dominion. It isn't a passive title. It denotes absolute authority over a physical space, over a situation, or, crucially in this case, over other people.
So we start with this foundation of master or owner. But then she combines that with Moët. And, I mean, most people immediately associate that with the luxury champagne brand, right? Moët and Chandon.
Naturally.
But in this specific cultural context, the source material points out that it goes far beyond just an expensive drink. Moët champagne actually serves as a very specific traditional offering in Haitian Verdú for Urzili-Freda.
Yes.
And for those listening who aren't familiar with that theology, Urzili-Freda is the spirit, the low of love, of immense luxury, of beauty, and of romantic entanglement.
So when you synthesize those elements, right, the Creole concept of dominion, the offering to the spirit of love and luxury, and the English word goddess, what you are looking at is not just a catchy screen name to use on an app.
No, it's way deeper.
Symbolically, the title translates to a master spirit of command and irresistible attraction.
Irresistible attraction. That is quite the self-declaration.
It is, and Toussaint has actually stated publicly that her brother gave her this name to signify an undeniable draw. You know, an aura that simply cannot be ignored or refused by anyone she encounters.
I just try to think about the psychological weight of putting that name on every single day. I kind of look at this like a superhero origin story, but one that has been reverse engineered specifically for digital dominance.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, I mean, live streaming is an incredibly harsh environment. You step into a public chat room and people will just tear you apart for your appearance, your voice, your background, whatever they can find.
Oh, absolutely. The internet is brutal.
Right. So if she logs on as just Charlene, she's completely vulnerable to that abuse. But if she puts on the armor of the Moët Goddess, if she truly convinces herself she's a master spirit of command, she has preemptively set the terms of engagement.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how it functions as a cognitive filtering device.
A filtering device? How do you mean?
By adopting that specific moniker, she is filtering every single digital interaction through a lens of supreme, almost divine authority.
Ah, okay.
So if someone in the chat gives her positive attention, it's because of her undeniable magnetic draw. But if someone rejects her or blocks her or insults her, they aren't actually rejecting her.
They're just resisting the goddess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are simply fighting the inevitable power of the goddess. They are struggling against a spiritual current that they will eventually inevitably succumb to.
Wow.
It creates this impenetrable psychological loop where she remains at the center of power, regardless of what the real world is actually telling her.
Okay, but let's pause on that for a second, because this is where the line gets really blurry for me.
Yeah.
Do we think branding herself with this heavy spiritual authority is a calculated, conscious marketing tactic?
Like she's playing a character.
Right. Like, is she just a savvy internet marketer who understands that grandiose, unhinged characters pull the most views on platforms like Kick or BigoLive? Or are we looking at someone who genuinely, deeply believes in her own mythology?
You know, that tension is the core mystery of her entire digital footprint.
It really is.
Because most successful internet personalities, even the most outrageous ones, they know exactly where the character ends and the real person begins.
Yeah, they turn off the camera and go make a sandwich as a normal human being.
Precisely. But with Toussaint, the boundary has completely collapsed. The mythology has basically devoured the reality.
Yours is terrifying.
It is. The behavioral markers suggest she operates from a place of absolute conviction that this spiritual authority is real. She genuinely believes she possesses this dominion.
But the tragedy is that the internet feeds it.
Exactly. She is operating within digital platforms that highly reward, incentivize, and monetize that exact kind of extreme delusional behavior. So what might have initially started as a protective shield against internet trolls
has become a prison.
Yes. It's been validated by thousands of viewers and thousands of dollars, cementing it into an unshakable belief system.
Which makes the contrast with her actual physical reality so incredibly jarring. I mean, you have a name that projects absolute luxury, wealth, and command.
Right.
But then you look at her biographical timeline and her physical surroundings, and it presents an almost unbelievable cinematic contradiction.
It's night and day.
We are talking about Charlene F. Toussaint. She is a 34-year-old Haitian-American woman born in December 1991. The public records show she has roots in Baldwin, New York, and out in California before she eventually settled down in Ackworth, Georgia, somewhere around 2011.
A real person.
A real person with a real documented history.
A tangible geographical history. But the luxury of the Moët Goddess is currently being broadcast from the front seat of an 18-year-old sedan.
It's so wild.
She recently celebrated what she termed her one-year anniversary of living entirely out of her 2006 Toyota Camry.
Celebrating an anniversary of living in a car.
Right. She broadcast from that driver's seat constantly. Occasionally, the background shifts to, like, a cheap motel room or an unverified private residence. But the Camry is her primary broadcast studio.
Her domain.
She is projecting a life of purported spiritual dominance and undeniable, irresistible attraction from a vehicle that most people would have traded in a decade ago.
It is visually fascinating. But here is the twist that makes the internet so cynical.
The rumors.
Yes, a massive portion of her own audience doesn't even believe she's actually homeless.
Really?
Yeah. If you read the chat logs or the forums tracking her, there is rampant speculation that this entire car-living narrative is completely fabricated. Her viewers are convinced she actually still resides at home, perhaps in a house with her parents or her grandmother in Georgia, and that the car is just a prop.
Okay, let's analyze that theory because it introduces the concept of the digital set.
Right.
If the audience speculation holds true, and she does have access to a stable, traditional home, her choice to deliberately isolate herself in a 2006 Toyota Camry to broadcast is deeply intentional.
It's a creative choice.
Exactly. It transforms the vehicle from a mere mode of transportation into a highly specific, curated stage. It reinforces a narrative of being a nomad, of being untethered, independent, and perpetually on the run towards some great destiny.
Because a woman broadcasting safely from her grandmother's guest bedroom just simply does not command the same sense of urgency.
It lacks the voyeuristic appeal. It doesn't have the grit of a woman surviving in her car, battling the elements, chasing her digital dreams.
You know what it reminds me of? The Camry acts like a reality TV confession booth.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
You know those tiny soundproofed rooms they force reality contestants into when they want them to break down and spill their guts?
Yes, the confessional.
Right. It forces an incredibly intimate yet completely claustrophobic connection with the audience. There is nowhere else to look. The camera is inches from her face.
There's no background decor to distract the eye.
Exactly. Just the dim glow of the dashboard and the darkness outside the window. It strips away all visual noise and forces the viewer to focus entirely on her monologue.
It also creates a permanent illusion of motion, even when the car is just idling in a Walmart parking lot.
Which feeds into the goddess persona.
It does. The nomadic narrative is essential to the psychology of the goddess persona. A goddess of command cannot be stagnant. She must be actively exerting her will upon the world. She must be on a journey.
So whether the audience doubts the authenticity of her housing situation or not, her sheer dedication to broadcasting from that confined space solidifies her commitment to the bit.
It blurs the lines of reality for the viewer. You find yourself watching and wondering, is she truly transient? Or am I watching the most dedicated, immersive piece of performance art currently happening on the internet?
But the physical vehicle, the Camry, is only half the story.
Right.
Because she possesses a completely different esoteric vehicle that actually drives her behavior. And this requires us to unpack her spiritual practices, which are a highly volatile, syncretic mix of ideologies.
Volatile.
Because she frequently identifies as a Christian on stream. She uses standard Christian rhetoric, which provides this sort of mainstream, easily digestible moral framework for her audience.
Yes.
But at the exact same time, she is deeply involved in esoteric witchcraft, which is why there is a literal book of spells riding shotgun in her car.
Right. The term for this is spiritual syncretism, the blending of two or more religious belief systems into a new system. But Toussaint's application of this is highly idiosyncratic. The core of her spiritual framework, the concept she fixates on more than anything else, is something she pronounces phonetically as her motorbike.
Okay, I remember reading that in the source notes the first time and thinking, wait, why is she so obsessed with getting a motorcycle?
Right. It sounds like she wants to buy a bike.
But she isn't talking about a Harley Davidson.
No, not at all. When she repeatedly references her motorbike, she's actually talking about the Merkaba, or Merkafava.
The Merkaba.
Yes. We need to step into the realm of sacred geometry and ancient mysticism for a moment to understand this.
Okay, lay it on me.
The Merkaba is a highly specific geometric symbol. Imagine a three-dimensional star made of two interlocking triangular pyramids, tetrahedrons.
Like a Star of David, but 3D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One points up, representing the spiritual realm and the divine, and one points down, representing the physical realm and the earth.
Okay.
Philosophically, meditating on this geometric shape is believed to create a divine vehicle of light, spirit, and body. It is an energetic field that supposedly allows a practitioner to transcend physical dimensions or limitations.
A vehicle of light and spirit. Okay, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
Physically, her reality is that she is confined to the front seat of a beat-up 2006 sedan.
Right.
But mentally, spiritually, she believes she is operating a multidimensional chariot of divine light that transcends all earthly barriers.
That is the exact psychological utility of the belief system. The Merkaba provides a cosmic escape hatch from her mundane, restrictive reality.
Wow.
However, she does not use this concept for quiet, personal meditation or inner peace or spiritual enlightenment.
No, of course not.
She weaponizes it.
Right, weaponized mysticism.
She uses the concept of the Merkaba, along with the physical deployment of crystals and spellbooks, to convince her thousands of viewers and to convince herself that she possesses a supernatural overriding command over specific human targets.
So she believes these esoteric tools grant her ultimate influence.
Yes.
But there is a massive caveat in her theology, and this is where it crosses the line from eccentric internet behavior into genuine, real-world danger for the people she targets.
The proximity rule.
Yes. Her belief system dictates that this spiritual power is maximized by physical proximity. She genuinely believes that her vehicle of light and her spells only achieve absolute control if she can get physically close to the person she is fixated on.
Here is where it gets really interesting psychologically. The esoteric tools are being utilized as psychological leverage.
Meaning what?
They provide a divine, unquestionable justification for behavior that the legal system clearly defines as stalking.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In her mind, she isn't harassing a man who has blocked her on social media. She is executing a spiritual mandate.
She's just doing her job as a goddess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The goddess is simply doing the necessary legwork to align the physical world with the spiritual reality she has already constructed in her mind using the Merkaba.
I really want you to stop and think about the danger of a closed-loop belief system like that. Think about how standard human interaction works, right?
Right.
If you approach someone and they say, "Leave me alone," your brain registers rejection. You feel embarrassment, you feel shame, you back off, social inhibitions kick in.
That's normal.
But if you genuinely believe you are operating a divine vehicle of light and the universe has guaranteed your absolute dominion over this specific person, doesn't that completely eradicate all social inhibitions?
It absolutely does. Rejection doesn't exist in that framework.
Right. If they say no, or if they get a restraining order, or if they lock their gates, it just looks like a minor temporary illusion that you have to push through to fulfill your destiny.
It creates a psychological armor that is entirely impenetrable to logic, reason, or rejection. In fact, rejection often acts as an accelerant.
It fuels the fire.
Exactly. It is perceived not as a lack of interest from the target, but as the target stubbornly resisting their own preordained destiny. This only fuels her drive to get closer, to break down their resistance, and to enforce the spiritual truth she believes she has manifested.
Terrifying for the target.
All societal boundaries, legal warnings, and basic human boundaries are completely stripped away by this divine mandate.
And we know exactly how this manifests, because this supreme confidence directly fuels a highly specific repeating pattern of behavior.
Yes, it's a pattern.
It is not random, chaotic energy. She targets specific, high-profile men on the internet, and she runs the exact same playbook every single time. It is literally a blueprint for erotomania.
Okay, let's define erotomania clearly, because it is the clinical foundation for what her audience is watching unfold.
Yeah, lay out the clinical definition.
Erotomania, which is historically known as de Clerambault syndrome, is a specific psychological delusion where an individual possesses an absolute unyielding belief that another person is secretly, deeply in love with them.
Secretly in love with them.
Secretly, yes. And crucially, the target of this delusion is almost always someone of higher social status, wealth, or public standing.
Like a celebrity.
A celebrity, a politician, or in this modern context, a mainstream influencer or a musician.
Right.
The delusional person believes they are destined to be together, and they will interpret completely innocuous actions by the target as secret, coded messages affirming this love, despite all glaring evidence to the contrary.
So if the target wears a blue shirt on a live stream, the person suffering from erotomania thinks, "Oh, he wore blue because he knows it's my favorite color. He's secretly communicating with me."
Exactly. Or he touched his ear, that means he misses me.
Wow.
And the current, highly public fixation dominating Toussaint's digital life is centered on the mainstream music artist DDG.
Yes, DDG.
And this has escalated far beyond casual, overly enthusiastic fandom. Her pursuit of DDG was so intense, so heavily driven by this weaponized belief that physical proximity would unlock his secret love for her, that it triggered a massive organized reaction across multiple internet communities.
This detail totally blew my mind when I read it. The communities on BigoLive and Discord actually formed an ad hoc early warning tracking network for DDG's real-world security team.
It's unprecedented.
Think about the sheer scale of that. Her own digital ecosystem, the trolls who usually mock her, the casual viewers, the commentary channels, they realized that the threat she posed was so genuine as she began physically shadowing DDG's national tour that they mobilized across platforms to ping his security detail with her location data.
Which really highlights how visceral and credible the threat felt to thousands of observers.
Absolutely.
But what is critical to understand is that DDG is merely the current iteration of the software. Toussaint's behavior follows a rigid, deeply ingrained, repeating script. Long before DDG was ever in the picture, she executed this exact same pattern against multiple high-profile creators within the closed ecosystem of BigoLive.
Right. The digital geography here is really important because before she was chasing mainstream rappers on national tours, she was hunting within her own app.
Yes. Let's look at the history.
Okay, so there are two primary targets that preceded DDG. First, there is a creator named Flacko, and he was crowned earlier this year as a definitive Bigo icon.
Which means he reached the top tier of status on that specific platform, making him an ideal target for erotomania.
Exactly. And then there is Big Papi. And the crucial detail regarding Big Papi is that he is in a very public, highly visible, committed relationship.
But that didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter at all. Toussaint targeted him relentlessly.
Because if we connect this to the bigger picture of an erotomanic delusion, the target's real-world attachments, a girlfriend, a wife, a family, are perceived as irrelevant obstacles.
Just minor bumps in the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are seen as forced arrangements or illusions, keeping the target away from their true destiny with the delusional individual. The script she runs is identical, regardless of the target's personal life.
It is exactly like a malicious software script executing on different operating systems.
That's a perfect analogy.
You know, you just insert the new name and hit run program. The target changes from Flacko to Big Papi to DDG, but the algorithm remains completely untouched.
Let's walk through the steps of that script.
Okay, step 1. She gets on stream and publicly declares that the target is her husband. Step 2. She insists to her audience that she is destined to move into their home, completely ignoring their actual living situation.
Yep.
Step 3. She graphically claims she must bear their children. And step 4, the escalation point, she physically shows up at their private residences. Her own public live streams have documented her arriving at the homes of both Flacko and Big Papi in the past.
And we have to examine how the digital era acts as a supercharger for this specific pathology.
How do you mean?
Historically, if someone suffered from erotomania in, say, the 1980s or 90s, their delusion was somewhat limited by physical distance and a sheer lack of information.
Right, you'd have to look them up in a phone book or something.
Yeah. Stalking required immense physical effort, hiring private investigators or digging through trash to find a schedule. But today, the internet provides endless, frictionless access.
It's all just right there.
Live streamers and influencers voluntarily broadcast their daily routines, their exact GPS locations, the interiors of their homes, and their unfiltered daily thoughts.
They hand their lives over on a silver platter for content.
Precisely. And this creates a false sense of parasocial intimacy that constantly, relentlessly validates the delusion.
Right.
Every single time a creator like Flacko or DDG looks directly into the camera lens and speaks conversationally to their audience, the person suffering from erotomania genuinely believes the creator is looking through the screen, speaking directly and exclusively to them.
Because the architecture of live streaming simulates intimate one-on-one eye contact at a massive scale.
Exactly. And the audience watching Toussaint knows this pattern intimately. The consensus among the people tracking her is that the moment the DDG fixation eventually burns out, whether through legal intervention, sheer exhaustion, or boredom, she isn't going to get better.
No, the cycle just restarts.
She will inevitably cycle to a new target, reboot the exact same script, and the process will start all over again. Declare marriage, demand children, fire up the Camry, and drive to the house.
It's a never-ending loop.
It is a cyclical compulsion. The high of the pursuit, the surge in viewership and attention it garners online, the spiritual justification provided by the Merkaba, It all forms an enclosed psychological loop that requires a constant high-status focal point to keep spinning.
So when one target forcibly extracts themselves, the system simply seeks a new host.
Exactly.
But hold on, we need to address a massive glaring contradiction in the logistics of all this. Let's really break down the math.
The financials.
Yes, the financials, because shadowing a mainstream artist's national tour is not cheap. Driving a 2006 Toyota Camry across the country requires thousands of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are paying for constant fill-ups at the gas station, frequent oil changes, replacing worn tires, booking cheap motel rooms so you can shower, buying VIP concert passes, and paying exorbitant fees for backstage meet and greets just to force a face-to-face interaction with DDG.
It adds up fast.
That requires immense liquid capital. But if you watch her streams right before these stalking tours begin, she is sitting in her car crying on BigoLive and Kick, begging her audience for Cash App donations just to buy dinner.
Right.
She presents as completely destitute. So how on earth is a massive multi-state stalking operation being funded by someone who claims they can't afford a value meal?
This is where we transition from psychology into economics, and it is perhaps the most dystopian element of the entire phenomenon.
It's dark.
We are looking at the intricate mechanics of what we call the hate-watching economy, the financial paradox of her presenting as broke, but funding a national tour is instantly resolved when you dissect the architecture of platform incentives.
Okay, break that down for me. How does appearing destitute and acting erratically suddenly translate into thousands of dollars in tour funding money?
It translates through the monetization of outrage. We have to understand that live streaming algorithms, whether we're talking about BigoLive, Kick, TikTok, or YouTube, are completely devoid of morality.
They don't care about right or wrong?
They do not differentiate between love, admiration, and inspiration versus hate, disgust, and mockery. They only measure one single metric: engagement.
Velocity of comments, watch time, all that.
Exactly. And microtransactions. When Toussaint behaves erratically, when she announces a new delusional target, or when she visibly embarks on these high-stakes cross-country pursuits, viewer outrage spikes. And outrage drives massive viewership spikes.
And these people aren't just tuning in silently with a bucket of popcorn, right? They are actively participating. The streams get flooded with internet trolls.
Yes.
And they don't just type mean comments in the chat for free, they open their actual wallets. On BigoLive, viewers can purchase virtual currency gifts that the platform calls diamonds or beans.
Right, diamonds and beans.
These digital icons cost real money to purchase, and the streamer can cash them out for real US dollars, while the platform takes a significant percentage cut of the transaction.
And the mechanism that drives the highest volume of these transactions is the TTS, or text-to-speech engine. This is a crucial gamified tool in the hate-watching economy.
Yes, the TTS. For anyone who hasn't seen this in action, it is wild.
Okay.
Explain how this API actually functions on a stream.
Imagine you are a viewer, okay? You log into the stream, and you see Toussaint sitting in her car talking about how she is destined to marry DDG. You find this absurd, and you want to mock her.
Naturally, if you're a troll.
Right. So for a few dollars, you can type an insult, a provocation, or a deeply personal attack into the chat and attach a financial donation to it. By doing so, you force the platform's robotic text-to-speech voice to read your message out loud live on the broadcast.
Which means she has to hear it.
You are ensuring that Toussaint and the thousands of other people watching are forced to hear your specific insult.
You are literally paying a digital cover charge for the privilege of throwing a tomato at someone in the public square.
That's exactly what it is. The viewers are paying for direct, guaranteed harassment. They get an instantaneous dopamine hit when she reacts to the robotic voice insulting her.
But the irony.
The tragic irony is that in their effort to mock and stop her behavior, they are directly funding the very behavior they are outraged by.
It is a toxic Kickstarter. That is the only analogy that makes sense to me.
A toxic Kickstarter?
Yeah. The algorithm operates like a massive slot machine where the currency is human outrage. Her audience is literally crowdsourcing a psychological breakdown in real time. They are buying shares in her inevitable collusion with reality.
Because every single dollar sent to call her crazy.
Exactly. Every $5 TTS message sent to tell her DDG hates her is a dollar that gets transferred to her bank account, goes straight into the gas tank of that 2006 Camry, and pushes her 50 miles closer to DDG's tour bus.
The internet doesn't stop her exploitation. The internet directly provides the liquid capital required to maintain the vehicle and the stalking.
So what does this all mean? Which brings up an incredibly thorny debate regarding culpability. Who is responsible for this ecosystem?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the architecture of these apps is intentionally designed to seamlessly, frictionlessly convert an emotional reaction into a financial transaction.
Right, the platforms employ engineers to build the tools, the diamonds, the beans, the TTS APIs, the annotated pop-ups that make this specific type of monetization not just possible, but highly efficient and addictive.
So I really want you, the listener, to chew on this for a second. You might think, well, I would never send money to troll someone. But have you ever lingered on a train wreck video just to read the comments?
Yeah.
Have you ever shared a clip of someone acting unhinged because it was funny? Because even passive viewing feeds the algorithm the watch time it needs to promote her to the people who will pay.
The algorithm needs eyeballs.
Right. Are the platforms responsible for building the casino that allows this psychological exploitation to occur? Or is the audience entirely to blame for pulling out their credit cards and hitting send?
Good stuff.
Because BigoLive didn't force the viewer to hate watch, but BigoLive sure is quietly taking a 30% cut of every single insult hurled her way.
It is a symbiotic relationship of exploitation.
Yeah.
The platform profits from the traffic and the transaction fees. The trolls get their cheap entertainment and feeling of superiority, and Toussaint gets her funding to continue the pursuit.
But this highly lucrative financial loop comes at a devastating, incalculable personal cost. Because beneath the bravado of the Moët Goddess persona, beneath the spiritual syncretism and the digital armor, there is an incredibly uncomfortable reality regarding her underlying mental state.
And this is where the conversation gets incredibly heavy, because we have to look past the economics and address the mental health discourse surrounding her.
And I want to be unequivocally clear here. Toussaint has never been clinically diagnosed publicly. Everything we were discussing is based on external observation, community speculation, and the visible behavioral markers she broadcasts 24 hours a day.
Right. We are not doctors, and the internet should never play armchair psychiatrist.
Exactly. But the visible signs of profound distress are impossible to ignore.
The markers are stark, and they manifest physically.
What?
One of the most prominent indicators of an overwhelmed nervous system is her physical anxiety show.
When she is placed under intense stress, or when she is directly confronted by hostile creators on live stream panels, her digital armor cracks and her body takes over. She exhibits an involuntary, guttural, frog-like vocal tic.
It's like a sharp, repetitive throat sound.
Yes. This is not a calculated part of her goddess performance. It is a physiological, uncontrollable response to overwhelming stress and anxiety.
And it completely contradicts the persona of absolute command. And then there is the massive contradiction in her social behavior. She openly admits to her audience that she suffers from severe social anxiety in the real world.
Which is common.
Yet, the moment she is on stream, she operates with absolutely zero verbal boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, the context here is interesting. She is a plus-size woman, and she remains fully clothed on camera. She is not relying on physical nudity or traditional adult content.
But her verbal interactions are shocking. The moment a male creator enters her digital vicinity on a live split-screen panel, she instantly engages in highly explicit, graphic, adult-oriented verbal flirting. It doesn't matter if she knows them, it doesn't matter if they are married, and it doesn't matter if they are actively hostile toward her.
That severe boundary blurring is a classic clinical indicator of profound social disconnection.
It makes everyone uncomfortable.
She lacks the internal regulatory mechanisms to gauge appropriate social interaction. The digital interface acts as an anesthetic for her social anxiety. The screen creates a false sense of safety where the normal real-world rules of engagement don't apply.
So she just sends whatever comes to mind.
Right. This hypersexualized verbal output functions as a defense mechanism, a way to assert dominance, or it is a deeply misplaced, desperate attempt at forging a human connection in an environment where she feels untouchable.
And there are clues that her mental state wasn't always completely unmanaged by medical professionals. Longtime viewers bring up what they call the medication mystery.
The medication mystery.
Yeah. Community members who have followed her since before the nomadic car living era, back when she lived in a traditional home, allegedly with her grandmother, report that they regularly observed her taking daily medication on stream.
Oh, interesting.
But the nature of those pills is entirely unconfirmed. No one knows what they were prescribed for, and it appears she is no longer taking them while living in the Camry.
Which naturally fuels the endless, rampant speculation in her chat. The community constantly throws around heavy diagnostic terms: autism spectrum disorder, severe ADHD, schizophrenia,
They just throw these words around.
The chat essentially functions as the real-time, unqualified diagnostic panel. And while it is incredibly dangerous for the internet to diagnose someone, the collective concern actually reached a tipping point where it manifested into a direct on-stream intervention.
Yes, the silver siren intervention. This is one of the most fascinating, heartbreaking moments in her digital history.
It really is.
Silver Siren is a prominent, respected figure within the BigoLive ecosystem. She has ADHD herself, and she is very open about having a son with a clinical diagnosis.
Right.
And instead of mocking Toussaint, Silver Siren actually brought her onto a live stream panel for an empathetic, gentle intervention. She shared her own personal story, she talked about the struggles her son faces, and she gently but firmly urged Charlene to seek professional clinical evaluation and medical support.
She explicitly named ASD, schizophrenia, and ADHD in a supportive context.
Exactly. She tried everything she could to break through the armor of the Moët Goddess and speak directly to Charlene.
It was a rare moment of genuine human concern penetrating the toxic, gamified digital bubble. But it highlights the tragedy of her situation because it remains entirely unclear if Toussaint absorbed the advice or if she was simply humoring the broadcast to maintain her screen time and engagement metrics.
Because genuine concern doesn't go viral.
Because the harsh reality of the hate-watching economy is that genuine quiet concern doesn't pay for gas. Drama, conflict, and delusion pay the bills.
And the drama has literally spawned an entire cottage industry. BigoLive has this massive sub-industry of commentary channels dedicated solely to dissecting the Moët saga.
It's a whole ecosystem.
It's like ESPN for internet breakdowns. You have figures like Lainey, who consistently tracks Toussaint's daily behavior and breaking drama. You have Big Prez, who provides these detailed play-by-play breakdowns of her streams. And then there's Kardashian.
Kardashian's role in this ecosystem is particularly telling regarding how these platforms two people up.
He wasn't always a critic, right?
No, he wasn't always a critic. He was formerly one of Toussaint's largest financial and emotional supporters on the app. He backed her. He genuinely believed in helping her stabilize her life. Wow. But eventually, after watching the repeating script of erotomania and the refusal to get help, he became completely disillusioned and withdrew his backing. Now, he hosts dedicated broadcasts specifically to dissect her ongoing saga, publicly questioning her mental stability alongside the rest of the commentary ecosystem.
Which raises an incredibly difficult question, and it's one I really struggle with. Yeah.
Are these commentary channels performing a public service? Are they holding her accountable by documenting the actions of someone who is actively stalking real people like DDG and Flacko? Or are they just symbiotic parasites feeding off her mental instability to boost their own views and their own bank accounts?
This raises an important question, and it is almost certainly a combination of both, which makes the ethics of it incredibly murky.
It's a gray area.
By dedicating entire hours-long broadcasts to analyzing her every move, they amplify her reach exponentially. This, in turn, feeds her delusion of grandeur because, in her mind, a goddess should be talked about constantly.
Good PR or bad PR, it's still PR.
At the same time, they are generating their own ad revenue and TTS donations by reacting to her breakdown. It is a closed-loop digital food chain. But the most tragic aspect of this entire ecosystem is a phenomenon we can call the cycle of abuse.
Right, because she doesn't just broadcast alone from her car. BigoLive is built around these live panels, where up to 9 creators can share a screen.
And she actively seeks out interaction on panels with creators like Big Papi, the very men she targets, or other men who actively vocally despise her, and they do not hold back.
They can be ruthless.
They don't ignore her, they openly mock her, they humiliate her, they disrespect her physical appearance, and her delusions live on screen in front of thousands of people. And she stays. She sits there in her car and takes the abuse.
Psychologically, this is devastating to analyze. We are observing the profound tragedy of someone accepting public abuse simply to cure their own loneliness.
That is so sad.
For Toussaint, negative reinforcement has become the only reliable, consistent form of human contact she receives. When she is mocked by Big Papi, she is at least being seen. She is being acknowledged as existing.
Wow.
The hostile, vitriolic attention serves as a twisted, mutated substitute for real connection. Her profound isolation in that car is so deep that being humiliated on a live stream to thousands of laughing trolls is preferable to sitting in silence.
Wow, it's like a person dying of thirst in the middle of the ocean and they resort to drinking salt water, you know?
That's exactly it.
It temporarily fills the void in your stomach. It feels like you're consuming something that will save you, but ultimately it just accelerates the damage. It dehydrates you further and poisons your system. The abuse on these Bigo panels validates her existence for 5 minutes, but it completely erodes whatever is left of her actual fundamental mental well-being.
And the platforms facilitate every single drop of that salt water. They provide the venue, they supply the audience, and they handle the monetization of the abuse.
The internet provides this bizarre, hermetically sealed, protective bubble where actions only seem to result in digital consequences like getting blocked or yelled at or financial gain.
But that protective bubble of the internet cannot shield her from physical reality forever.
No, it can't.
While you can block a troll on Kick and you can ban an account on Discord, you cannot mute a court summons. And this brings us to the definitive bottleneck approaching her timeline, the reality check.
Yes. Toussaint has a mandatory court appearance scheduled in Atlanta, Georgia for August 2026.
A mandatory in-person appearance. Now, the charges themselves, according to public records, are outstanding traffic-related offenses.
Traffic tickets.
Right.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of her cross-country stalking on erratic behavior, traffic offenses might seem incredibly minor. But symbolically and practically, this event represents the critical, unavoidable intersection between her untouchable online goddess persona and offline, physical, legal accountability.
Exactly. Because the legal system is completely blind to internet fame. The judge sitting in that Atlanta courtroom does not care about the Moët Goddess.
No, they don't.
The court does not recognize the spiritual authority of the Merkaba or the protection of Urzuli Freda. The state of Georgia does not factor in how many diamonds or beans she earned on BigoLive yesterday. The real world demands the physical, quiet presence of Charlene Toussaint, the 34-year-old woman in the 2006 Camry.
It is the ultimate collapse of the digital set. In a courtroom, the trolls cannot pay a text-to-speech engine to object to the judge's ruling. She is standing at a profound crossroads. Will she appear and face the mundane, bureaucratic, humbling reality of the legal system? Or will the Moët Goddess persona completely override her basic survival instincts, causing her to avoid the date entirely, thereby escalating her legal jeopardy from minor traffic offenses into active warrants for her arrest?
And this is what I want to ask you, the listener. What happens to the audience's investment when the main character of their favorite internet reality show faces real-world incarceration or has her car impounded?
Good question.
I mean, really think about it. If she gets locked up, the stream goes dark, the screen goes black. Does the audience take any moral or financial responsibility for funding the gas money that led to those traffic tickets? Or do they just shrug, close the app, and seamlessly change the channel to the next creator having a public breakdown?
The history of the internet suggests the latter. The algorithm will not mourn her absence. It will simply adjust its parameters and serve the audience a brand new spectacle to fund.
Which is incredibly bleak, but undeniably true. Okay, let's take a deep breath and quickly recap the journey we've just taken, because we have covered an immense amount of psychological and digital ground today.
We really have.
We started by unpacking the heavy linguistic and spiritual weight of the Moët Goddess name, a title of absolute command rooted in Haitian voodoo that serves as her digital armor. We contrasted that grandiosity with the stark, claustrophobic reality of her broadcasting 24/7 from a 2006 Toyota Camry, questioning the deliberate use of the car as a digital set to project a nomadic narrative.
We examine the concept of weaponized mysticism, how esoteric geometric concepts like the Merkaba are utilized not for spiritual enlightenment, but as an impenetrable psychological justification for real-world stalking. We trace the rigid, repeating blueprint of erotomania she executes, targeting Bigo icons like Flacko and Big Papi long before she began shadowing a massive mainstream tour with BDG.
We dove into the deeply toxic, gamified economics of hate-watching, revealing the paradox of how online trolls literally funded her cross-country stalking campaigns through text-to-speech APIs. We faced the really uncomfortable mental health discourse, the involuntary vocal tics, the hypersexualized verbal boundary blurring as a defense mechanism, the heartbreaking silver siren intervention, and that devastating cycle of accepting abuse on Bigo panels just to cure her profound loneliness.
And finally, we looked ahead to the looming August 2026 court date in Atlanta, where the goddess must finally, inevitably answer to the physical, legal reality of Charlene Toussaint.
It is a comprehensive, deeply unsettling look at a technological system that perfectly, frictionlessly profits from human obsession and isolation.
It really is.
It is. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've spent this entire deep dive looking at how the architecture of BigoLive and Kick funds validates and essentially constructs Charlene's entire reality. But I want you to consider the concept of digital impermanence. What happens to the Moët Goddess if these specific platforms shut down tomorrow? What if BigoLive changes their terms of service? Or what if they permanently ban her IP address across the board?
Then what?
If a persona only exists because a highly specific, toxic, digital economy feeds it, does the goddess simply vanish the moment the server gets unplugged? It leaves you wondering how much of our own identities, our own confidence, and our own realities are permanently tied to the apps we use every single day.
A fascinating and deeply unsettling question to ponder as we close out.
Right. Just like that viral firework we talked about at the very beginning. What happens to the sky when the fire finally runs out of oxygen? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard, honest look at your own digital consumption habits this week. Be safe out there, and we will catch you next time.